I started learning, like, with a lot of these, you have to have like a calendar almost. Start planning, like, when do these conventions start opening up their signups, and it's usually like 5 months in advance for a lot of them.
Wow.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Comics Grind. I'm one of your hosts, Nico Rodriguez.
And I'm Ken, aka Comic-Can on YouTube.
And thank you so much for joining us for another weekly comics discussion. Today, we have a very, very special guest in the house. She is writer, artist, webcomics, webtoonist. Is that what you call it? I don't know. We shall find out. She is Mena Baldwin, most known for her webcomic called Witchblade. Mina, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm doing well today. I'm excited to be here. I've been
Awesome.
catching up with the podcast since I met you guys, and I'm really grateful to be here, talk about the comic and other convention things.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, so we actually met Mina at Eastern RimCon this 2 months ago now? I think
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 months ago. By
So that,
you
oh
know,
my gosh.
Jerry Schaefer is like the Nick Fury of everybody. You know, he's just like bringing all these comics artists, comics creators all together under one roof. This fantastic stuff. So let's go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I said I felt like I was meeting Nick Fury the day I met him. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. So we kind of kick off every episode here with the weekly grind. So Mina, we're going to kind of start off with you. What has your week in comics been like?
So yeah, so I do like a weekly art stream on my Twitch channel, and so I usually just do a page. And this week it was like toning and lettering, so I just talk and do a tone and lettering page on stream. But I kind of try and do that every day, so I can get a page a day done. And as well, my chapter 3 comic book size came in this week, so super excited for that. I showed that off on stream as well.
Nice.
And
Nice.
it's just one of those things I've been wanting to do. Just seeing it in print, seeing it like in the standard comic size, it's just so fun and really awesome. So yeah,
Sounds like an amazing week, actually.
yeah.
Getting physical copies of your bookings pretty awesome.
I
Yeah.
know.
We'll kind of get into like the Twitch streaming stuff. Like that's pretty dope that you're kind of streaming every day, you said?
Not every day, once a week, but like I work on the comic every day. Like it's just one of my dailies now. So
Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha. Ken, how about you, man? What you got done this week? Anything good?
It's never anything good.
Oh, come on now.
This week has just been more like marketing and setting up my social media and whatnot. I got like more followers than I do. No, I got more of a more following than I do followers, so I had to like lower that now, and that takes like hours apparently. I thought there was some app I could download to just like immediately like vanish a bunch of them, but no, I have to actually go in and manually.
You're one of those guys.
Yeah, man. I don't know how this works, so I'm just like guessing.
I'm gonna have to
everything.
I'm gonna have to rewind this later and go back to whenever Ken says my what is it? My
following.
My following is higher than my followers. Come on now.
Yeah.
Come on now.
It's part of it, man. It's part of it. So I gotta go in and manually like kind of lower that just to make it look like I'm popping off. You know what I mean? So
Dude, I'm like totally judging you right now.
Well, everything else is like just to support doing the art later on. And other than that, I got a proof copy of one of my books in, so
Nice.
I'm pretty happy about that. I'm going to make one adjustment to that and then hopefully get the rest later. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Nice, dude. That's pretty solid. God, I'm jealous. All of you are getting these physical copies in, man. I need to start printing some new stuff.
Self-publish.
Yeah, no, that's
Right.
that's what I'm doing. I mean, for me, it's kind of been this year-long work on my graphic novel. So I'm like as of this recording, I've got 5 more pages left to watercolor, and physical art wise, like interior art wise, I'm done. So
Nice.
it's going to be a full 120 pages. I'm excited for it. I've been talking about it forever. But I still have a lot more work to do once I finish that last and final page, because then I've got to scan everything in. I've got to touch it up. I've got to kind of put it. I've got to do some design stuff as well. I need to do some like chapter break pages and whatnot. And then I got to worry about like how I'm going to print it, because I'm really starting to think about doing it in hardcover. But then I was
That'd
just
be
on
nice.
I was on a couple sites this week, just kind of looking at like the cost to print hardcovers, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
But
Graphic design.
yeah,
Yep.
but you know, then again, it's like, okay, if you print a hardcover, you know, you can charge more for it because it's more of a prestige edition. So,
Right.
you know, that's going to be something I'm gonna have to think about. Maybe a mix of paperback, mix of hardcover. But we'll see. I just really want to get this thing, you know, the full complete package done by the end of this year. So I think I'm on a pretty good path, almost there. In
Maybe
terms of
hardcovers is what you'll do when you get the like 10th anniversary of West Not South rolling. Like you'll be like, oh, I'm offering the hardcover edition, and that'll be
could be. We'll see. 10,
Hardcover is
years.
very.
What's that, Mina?
I said hardcover is very tempting because it's just like, you know, it's gonna be beautiful and like it just feels nice.
Yeah.
But you know, gotta weigh
Yeah.
those things out, of course.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So it's been
Mina,
good.
what's the thing you're holding? Because it's like a little frog thing. Did you make that?
No, so I got this as an art trade from another artist, because my company's Humble Frog Illustration, and
Uh-huh.
so they make crochet frogs, and I do like frog terrariums, and we did a frog trade, and so this is just my
Wow.
little guy I bring sometimes.
So you make frog terrariums?
Yeah, so I call them
Oh,
like
okay.
frog charms. They're like these mini glass dome things,
Uh-huh.
with a clay frog in it, and they wear hats sometimes. Like the
Wow.
wizard hat ones are the most popular,
Uh-huh.
and so that's like my other thing I do with the comic. So
So you traded that for the crochet
yeah,
frog?
yep,
Nice.
Nice, crafty.
Dope.
yep.
All right, well that's good. It sounds like we're all three of us are doing some good stuff in the world right now. So that's fantastic. But let's go ahead and kind of kick off the interview with Mina portion. We're gonna kind of talk about some like inspirational stuff, like what kind of drove you into comics. I kind of like,
Yeah.
you know, with our new guests and stuff. I kind of like talking about like what was that first moment in like that eye-opening experience in comics. And what I mean by that is like, what is that first, or if you can remember that first moment you had with a comic or some kind of book or something that really led you down the path of creating books. For example, with me, Sin City by Frank Miller, whenever I first opened that book, I really realized like what comics could be. And I think that kind of sparked like the whole creativity aspect of my comics making. So for you, Mina, what do you think that was?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you. Yeah, so it was kind of a long, winding road for me, I would say. Like, I went back and forth with a couple of things, but like, comics were always this very like calming thing for me. And I know like a lot of my early big inspirations were like Bill Watterson with Calvin and Hobbes, and you know, Mutts as well. Like very like Sunday newspaper comics. And so I used to make my own like mini comics like that, called Cheezo Man. And it was like
Nice.
super powered cheese who fought evil milk. And I wrote this in
Okay.
like second grade. I have like 10 issues of it, so called. It's
Nice.
hardly legible, but it was like my first comic, and I would make people read it. And like I said, it was hardly legible. from then on, I think later I got really into like anime and like manga, like art style when I got
Right.
into like my preteen, teenage years. And so I feel like my style is really indicative of like those artists, like mangakas. Like, I don't know if you guys heard of like shoujo artists like Bisco
A few.
Heitori. She did Oran High School Host Club. Of
Okay.
course,
Well, yeah.
yeah. Full Metal Alchemist. That was a big
Yeah, I
one.
knew you would say that.
Yeah. I was really into some shonen as well. Like, there's a kind of like not as well known one that people actually do know when I say it sometimes. It's called like Mar or Marchin Awakens Romance.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
That one's a good one. I saw that one on Toonami a long time ago.
Oh yeah, it played on
Yeah.
Toonami?
Yeah.
I had to watch it later.
Oh,
on,
really?
some Yoho sites. Anyway, but but I did buy like as much as I could of the manga and like really enjoyed it. And
Really?
those are some of my inspirations, and of course like gaming as well. I think gaming and like those kind of stories and the style and look of the characters really inspired my work.
Like, what type of games? Like, would you say like Nintendo type or like Sonic or?
I do love both of those, but I would
Yeah.
say my art style is really inspired by like Square Enix, like concept artists like Amano-san and like Tetsuya Nomura, like those artists, like Final Fantasy,
Right.
Kingdom Hearts,
Yeah.
those kinds of art styles.
Nice.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting, hearing you say that, because you were super like back in my day. I'm gonna sound like the old guy in the room here, but because like I was inspired by like X-Men animated series, Batman animated series, so like it was animation, but more Western animation.
Yeah. I got into those late, so.
Yeah, no, that it's cool because like your generation's more inspired by the anime stuff and manga that really kind of hit in like that right time period for you guys. But
yeah, you can blame that on Toonami.
Yeah.
Also, why I'm into breakcore, because like their commercial breaks were all like breakcore music, and I was like, yeah, feeling this. Like,
oh, okay. I know what you mean, like
the
Adult Swim.
Yeah, like
the ad music.
The ad rolls.
Yeah, in the
they were
background.
so hype.
Right.
Go ahead, Ken. I saw you had a question.
I didn't have anything in specific, but I guess like if Full Metal Alchemist was one of your inspirations, actually I wanted to take a look at your work right now, just like take a scroll through.
Sharing the screen. There it is. So this is your Instagram.
This is my Instagram. Yeah. So it's a little more like businessy, I would say. So I just like to share some of my artwork, of course, but then like remind people if I'm going to an event, show off like that I'm at the event. And people get really excited for that.
And how did you find like who would you say is your audience? Like how do you find that?
It's hard to say. I like to think that my demographic is like teen to young adult for my comic, and then like people who are into like my frog aesthetic stuff is that's just like the sort of like cottage core, a little bit cutesy watercolor vibe.
Right. And you keep saying core. Like you're into like aesthetics and stuff, right?
Yeah, so it's like a certain aesthetic. Like some people say like witchy core or dark academia core, but it's and it's just like it just kind of stems back to just like a subgenre of like styles and looks, and I really like the sort of like space galaxy things, but I think a lot of my
Right.
since my character is a frog, you know, it does end up going back to the forest and nature a little bit. So um
Yeah, so let's kind of get into that a little bit about the so let's kind of backtrack a little bit. So
Uh-huh.
when did you kind of start first making comic? I mean, I know you said that like you had your kind of like, you know, your little cartoony kind of Calvin and Hobbes type stuff.
right.
But when do you think you kind of like started really getting into like committing to like make those comics and like those, you know, these kind of like epic stories that you're telling?
Right. So I would say 2020. Just
Really?
suddenly had a lot of time on my hands. Um,
Wonder why.
but yeah, definitely not you know, something crazy that happened. But
Yeah.
yeah, it, I originally had the story of I had called it Witchblade, not knowing there was a very popular comic called Witchblade in
Yeah.
high school. I'd started that idea in high school, and so the reason it's even called like RE Witchblade is it's like a reimagining, a redux.
Right.
And so
Now does it take inspiration from the original, from like the actual Witchblade comic, or is it
no, because like I
okay?
said, I had no idea. I was in
Gotcha.
high
Oh,
school, and
Yeah.
yeah. So um so with RE Witchblade, I started it in 2020. I was like, you know what? I've been saying I'm going to make this comic forever. It's like one of those things. You guys probably gone through the same thing. I'm like, hey, I have this idea. I'm going to draw it. I'm going to draw it. Draw some panels, and then you're like, okay, it's not quite there yet. Draw it. It's not quite there. I was like, you know what? I'm going to buckle down. I'm going to do this thing, and I'm at least going to make the first comic, and I'm at least going to print it because I knew if I printed it, it would be real for me, and I couldn't back away from it. You know.
Yeah,
right.
for
Um,
sure.
a lot of stuff I had done in the past was like purely digital, and that I would just end up leaving it because I was like, I don't have any more ideas. And so I think me going into the whole like looking into people who would, you know, print my work for me was a whole extra side part for it. But just having that story and changing like the main character, but still like keeping the same story beats. Um, it was just something I always wanted to write, and it was a little bit of for myself because I knew it was a story that I would have loved to read in high school. And
Right.
so in a way, sometimes I kind of hope that it does that for other people. Like this is something they would want to read. And
Yeah. Yeah, so you know, we have a lot of like, you know, viewers that are, you know, aspiring cartoonists, aspiring artists, trying to make their own comics and stuff. So you're completely self-taught, Mina?
um,
Art-wise?
um, yes and no. So I had a lot of really good teachers in middle school and high school, and then I did go to college for art, but I went in the 3D animation route.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I was really trying to get into like 3D animation and modeling, 3D modeling, and thought I would do like video game modeling and stuff like that. And then I got super burned out. Long
Yeah.
story short. And then I realized what I really liked doing was working in Photoshop at the time. But then I ended up moving away from Photoshop and going to Clip Studio Paint. But I liked working as like a digital illustrator more than anything else. Like I could do the 3D work, but it just like I said, it just burnt me out. And so
Right.
I did that. Did graphic design for a while. um, that's the other reason why I make sure to tell people I'm an illustrator, not a graphic designer. Please do not ask me to design your logo. I struggled with this one for such a long time. But yeah, it's just so I was, you know, I did have a lot of good teachers and went to school for art, went to college for art, but kind of like a different facet of art, you know.
Oh, okay, okay.
But the digital part, you know, all this part, the illustration on the tablet, that was self-taught. My my mom and dad, for one of my I think it was like my 16th birthday, they got me a Wacom tablet, and it was like this tiny thing, but I loved that Wacom tablet. And
Nice.
you know, it took a while for me to get that hand-eye coordination down, and that's what I tell people when they get a
Right.
Wacom tablet. The hardest thing to overcome is that hand to eye, like to screen, to hand to eye to screen. It's not
Yeah.
going to look quite right for a while, but like once your brain makes that connection, then it's like second nature.
Yeah. Yeah, I basically do that professionally now. Like I still use my Wacom tablet from school,
Mhm.
and I just work like that pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
I'm using like my iPad, and then even that I don't use professionally. I'll just do like sketches on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, the detached tablet from the screen.
Hand to eye to
It's rough. So like my whenever I'm doing digital stuff, my iPad is certainly the way to go, because I'm not going back to that detachment from the screen. So you guys can have all that.
come on, you could do it. You could do it.
Maybe
Yeah.
maybe someday when I have time on my hands, which is probably going to be never. But
Right.
so you're pretty much strictly digital, Mina, or are you using any
For-
kind of
Yeah, for the
traditional
most
methods?
part now. Yeah, for the most part now. I will do sometimes when I'm having trouble brainstorming, I will go back to like a sketchbook. I have this like nice hardcover sketchbook that I like a lot. I bring everywhere, and it doesn't tear up on me because I bring it everywhere.
Yeah.
But when I'm trying to brainstorm ideas, like either for the comic, like how I want to angle a certain set of panels, or I do like inked postcards every month, so I'm trying to like think of ideas for that, or like frog products. Just trying to figure that out. I bring my sketchbook, and then yeah, I'll come back, do it on here. And I'm one of those people, I always have to do a sketch. I know some people are like have this cool like second like eye, and they just like just paint it on there. No, I always have to sketch, even if I do another sketch on my sketchbook.
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah.
I was about to ask, like, how long do you plan Witchblade to be? Like, how long is it gonna be for you?
Yeah, so if it follows, if I don't go off the rails with the story, I'm hoping, I'm thinking it's going to be about 13 chapters.
13
So,
chapters. Okay,
And
that's
you're
that's
what, chapter
reasonable.
6?
yeah. So hopefully not, I mean, it'll be a couple more years with my pace, but, but, yeah. Because,
Let's
like I said, I restructure the scripts every time. So
Mhm.
I like write the script in like a formal script editing software, and
Okay.
that's because in college I took a screenwriting class with a really cool
Oh, okay.
instructor, like Professor Butch or something like that. He was very like open about like being positive with each other's scripts, but like you can criticize, but say something nice first. And so I had a really
Right.
good time learning how to screenwrite with in that class. And so that's how I do all my comic scripts. I screenwrite it like it's a play, but then afterwards I have to panel it out. Like, okay, how is this actually going to work in a panel?
Yeah.
And I've gotten better with that with each issue. I think the first one, there's a little bit of a roadblock, and the second one a little bit here and there. But I think by the third one, I start to get it down and like actually like do that thing that the like storyboard
Point.
artists, the thing that
Oh,
storyboard
okay.
artists say not to do, because I end up doing that thing where it's like I put them here and I put them here and I put them here, and it can get kind of confusing to think who's talking. And storyboard artists are like, hey, keep one character on one side of the screen and another character on another side of the screen when you're doing dialogue, even if you're going to different panels, and that way it just reads a lot more clearly to people who are reading it. And I think that's
Right. The 180 rule.
yes, thank you.
Right.
Yeah. And I think so. I work mostly traditional, but storyboarding and like doing those thumbs on digital like is awesome, I will say, because like whenever you're storyboarding and everything like on paper, you want to move something, so you got to erase it, you got to move it and redraw and stuff. But like I will say, like, digital thumbs are like amazing. You sketch something, you want it over here, you grab it, move it, and then keep going. So that's fantastic. But
Mhm.
um, Mina, so since we're kind of talking a little bit about the webcomic, go ahead and pitch it to the viewers. Tell us
Oh my
a
goodness.
little bit about
My elevator pitch.
Yeah, let me pull it up on the screen.
Yeah, there you go. There it
Okay.
is.
So, the normal elevator pitch I give to people for the first episode, right, is there is a young mage and her cousin who are forced to live in our world because their family is being hunted by a group of anarchists. However, they have a family heirloom that could save them, with one caveat: only a human can wield it. Will they be able to find that human? Will they be able to save themselves from these anarchists? Will they be able to go home? Even. Yeah.
There it is. To
Nice.
be determined in 12 chapters.
In about 12 chapters, yes.
Yeah,
That's
this
actually
is
such a realistic estimation of your story, because you would be surprised about how many people are out here saying like, "Oh, I'm going to do 100 chapters,
Oh,
and it's going to have 6 arcs, and it's
uh,
going to have a movie." Like,
I know personally how fast I work now. Like, if suddenly I get like an assistant to help with inking, I maybe, but I'm not there yet. I know how long I take on these. It's
right.
just like 100. No, I would be like in the grave. One more comic.
how many pages how many pages are your chapters typically?
Yeah, on average they're about 48 to 50 pages. So
Oh
Oh,
wow.
wow.
yeah,
So
they're nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. And workflow wise, like how many pages do you typically get done in, say, a week?
So if I am running on schedule, I like to sketch about 2 pages a day. So if I do, it's like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So 14 sketches, but then once I get into inking and toning, I get down to like 1 page a day. So that's why I usually estimate that I do like half the issue in 3 months and then a full issue in 6 months.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, no, that's solid. Is there any kind of, so like for instance, like me, like I've got the day job, right? So like my
Mm,
my workflow is like um when I'm, penciling and inking, like one night I'll pencil a page, so say like, Monday night I'll pencil the
mhm,
page, Tuesday night I'll ink that page,
mhm.
and then like, so on and so forth, kind of like a half a page a night.
Right.
So do you kind of have like one, do you kind of have like a schedule that you have, and two, do you have like any kind of advice for the other, comics creators out there that are watching, in terms of, because that's, we all know that that's like one of the hardest things to do when you're making indie
Yeah.
comics, when you're self-publishing, is like finding the time to like keep going, to keep progressing each and every
Mhm,
day, because once you stop progressing, you kind of put it back, and then you get into,
mhm.
a rut to where you're not making consistent content. But
Right.
do you have any kind of advice on that?
Yeah, I found what worked for me, and especially when I was working my 9 to 5, which was very demanding at the time. Um, I would set aside. I would make sure to do, no matter what, even if I was tired, at least like 2 hours. Just like work 2 hours on it every day, no
Yeah.
matter if it was like sketching, inking, that kind of thing. The other thing that helped me when I was starting to get like sort of burned out from the job, and then it made me not want to do the comic, right? Because my job was art related.
Mm.
Um, was I That's when I started streaming. So a lot of people actually do like to watch streams at nighttime.
Huh.
And so it doesn't work for me personally right now. I like to stream during the day, but during that time, I would say, hey, on Wednesdays I'm going to stream at night. Who wants to like just chill, like maybe fall
Mhm.
asleep to me drawing stuff? And sometimes that
Right.
just worked for me, like to just do the thing, because I'd just be so hung up on like, I don't know if I want to do it, but like you're on a screen. You have to do something. So it would just force me to do the thing I'd been like kind of, you know, not quite wanting to do, or like,
Right.
Interesting.
yeah.
So other than self-determination, you also had like this streaming commitment that you had to do something while people were watching you, right?
Well, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say like maybe it would be like a Friday or something. I'd be like,
Yeah.
I'm always going to stream on Friday, like at
Mm.
nighttime. Hopefully someone will show up. If no one does, I'll just talk to myself and play like someone's there. But it just really got me to do the artwork, and I was pleasantly surprised when people would jump in and be like, "Hey, how's it going? Glad to see you're here." And I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
hey, nice seeing you again." And they'd stop
Nice.
in for like maybe 30 minutes to an hour and then leave. And yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
And you said you had an art related job
Mhm.
before that. Was that the 3D graphics job or something
Yeah,
else?
so this was so you know how I kind of jokingly say graphic design. I worked at a t-shirt place as their graphic designer slash
Oh wow.
salesperson.
Uh,
And so, people would come in and ask for like, they weren't sure what they wanted on their t-shirt. And so you'd kind of give them some ideas about what they wanted and then get that shirt printed for them. But
nice.
which is always, like I said, which is always hilarious to me that I had that job at 2 different points in my life. And I don't consider myself a graphic designer. And so it'd just be the funniest thing when people would come in there and be like, yeah, I trust you completely. And I'm like, I don't trust me completely, but sure, let's go for it.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, and you made a good point about how having an art related job can really burn you out for doing your own stuff
Be
at.
careful with that, honestly. Like
Yeah.
I know a lot of us, our skill set is just art, and all we want to do is art ever. Please just let me do art, guys, please. But it can kind of be a trap in that way a little bit. Because that is to me the easiest way to burn out, and I've found what worked for me better is having a different creative subset as my job. Because I just work well in entertaining people and that kind of thing. Have that as your other job. And then when you go back to your art, you're like, okay, I'm putting all my art creative energy here. So, like, for example, I did like Ren Fest for 2 years as like
What is that?
a character actor.
So
The Texas Renaissance Festival. So people
Oh, okay.
basically like LARP, but like in a big way.
Wow.
Yeah.
But the campus is huge at the Texas Renaissance Festival. So yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So you let's dig deep into that. And
No, okay, sure.
no, I'm kidding. That's interesting. Do you think that so I guess that is a creative, outlet in terms of like a paying job. So that's pretty interesting. Did you kind of did you take anything away from that experience at the Ren Fest and kind of apply it to Witchblade or anything else, or was it kind of solely its own thing?
Yeah, I would say so. Definitely like the costuming, um, forms of like speech. If any of my characters are just like uh lich like so to speak, like because I do feature like mages, witches, and wizards. So if anyone's like way past the age of our our colloquialisms, what words would they possibly use, that sort of thing. The look of the wizarding world in general, they're kind of like, I would say, more European in their architectural style, whereas like Witchblade, where my main characters, Kira and Nick, are stuck in, they're like in America. And so that architectural style versus like a more like European style when Kira is able to briefly go back to the wizarding world. So
Right.
Awesome.
I think it can inspire a bit of it inspired a bit of that.
That's cool.
But yeah.
Awesome.
Nice. So then, unless Nico, you had something?
No, I just kind of up top, Ken, you kind of had some questions for Mina in terms of like
Yeah.
her full-time convention going and everything. So you have any
Yeah.
questions for her in that regard?
Yeah, I wanted to get into that. Because you mentioned that you go to this is like your first year really hitting the business side of comics. And
Right.
I'm wondering, like, how did you how did you find your audience, and did you start with conventions? How did you get started with that, and how has it snowballed up until now?
Yeah. I don't know if other artists have kind of run into this, but it can be kind of hard as a new person to get into these like long-standing conventions. A lot of
Mm.
these things are juried. Some of them are like lottery, and some of them are first come
Oh,
first serve. And so
really?
for me, I just needed to get my stuff out there, no matter what. And so what I started doing is applying to local Houston markets, seeing if they would accept just artists in general, if they were
Uh-huh.
okay with comic book artists. And I was lucky enough to find one that consistently would let me go to their events, sell my comics there, sell my original artwork there, because I do artwork, prints, as well as the frog related items, as I was talking about. That way you kind of hit a wide variety, and you I feel like it's really good training to go to these outdoor markets like this, because it definitely keeps you humble. Because
Yeah.
you'll
Oh, yeah.
definitely have
I've been
someone like
there.
walking by, and then like they make this face like, and then like quickly walk away
Oh man.
from your booth. But then on the other hand, you have these wonderful interactions. Like I remember one of my first days doing an outdoor market. It was like the weather was horrible. It was like a windy rain, and I had
Oh,
to learn very quickly to protect my artwork in plastic if I am working outside.
right.
And these three younger teenage girls came up to my booth, started reading my comic. I was like, yeah, go ahead, read as much as you want. Like, treat it like Barnes and Noble. They didn't know what that meant. Um, and I was like, yeah, just go ahead and like read it. And they were just so intrigued by it. They ran and like got money from their parents, and they were like, we want to buy like the first three, like each of us will get one, and then we'll share it among each other.
Wow.
That made my whole day. Like, I was okay with standing in the rain all of a sudden. But
Nice.
you'll get interactions like that, and it's the coolest thing ever, where it's like, wow, someone, my intended demographic, likes my work. Like, this is awesome.
Right.
So from then on, I started getting a little bit of help. Like, I would search up stuff myself, but one of my other friends, her name is Kim. She goes by Isaiah Grams on Instagram.
Mhm.
Um, she started like recommending other conventions I could apply to, so I wouldn't have to like do all the research by myself. But she invited me to table with her at Anime Frontier in Dallas, December, and I was still working another job at the time. And I was like, yeah, could I just like, could I share a table with you? So she kind of like introduced me into that side of the culture, like the anime convention culture. And I'm super
Nice.
grateful to her for that, for just like giving me that opening, because that way I got to see that, like, oh no, there are way more people who can be interested in your art. You're just like not in the right market right now.
Ah,
And so like going there and seeing like the different types of people and what they were interested in comparison, was really nice. And so then, yeah, from then on I started learning, like, with a lot of these you have to have like a calendar almost, start planning like, when do these conventions start opening up their signups, and it's usually like 5 months in advance for a lot of them.
wow.
Start looking into like, there was this site called like Texas Conventions, and like I just went through the whole thing. I'm like, when is it open? What's 5 months before? Okay, I will look into it. Sometimes I would miss the deadline. I'd be like, okay, I put like a little skull next to it, I'll catch it next year, I'll know to check a month earlier. And so it starts becoming that, where like, you have to almost make a calendar of when you need to apply for things,
Mhm.
and check into things. And so then, like, when I went to BACON, which was really great because it was local. I try and stay local because travel's kind of hard for me, at costs wise, because I'm
Right.
not like making the big bucks yet, but like, But I'm still new enough to where it's like not everyone like knows my work already, because that's what some of the other artists I've met in these conventions have said. Like, you know, if they've been doing it a while and they're like, oh, we have to kind of go out farther just because people recognize our stuff and they won't buy from us anymore, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm not there
Oh,
yet.
okay, I see.
So I can still stay local, keep my costs down, that kind of thing. So anything in Texas, I try for it, you know. I try and like look those up ahead of time and get into those. But yeah, and then when I have a gap, because sometimes, you know, you don't get accepted. So when I have a gap, then I go back to my local market, sit outside, and see if anyone will buy stuff. So, but
Okay.
I was really grateful with what happened in BotCon, because that's how I met Jerry Schaefer. And that's how I got into the first like comic convention I had.
Nice.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, Jerry's awesome.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's just
It was
been.
just really-
Oh, I'm sorry. It's like, oh, like every weekend you do this?
So at one time I was trying to do it every weekend, but then
Mhm.
it was taking a toll on my health. So I need to at least take one weekend off.
Right.
Yeah.
That's still a lot of shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the one thing that like I really do appreciate out of what you said and all that is that, you know, there's a lot of things where it's like, you know, you could try to just, you know, gather the following through like digital space, right? But you're
Mhm.
like making a point to like hit shows to trying to like get
Right.
that like organic growth, which is awesome, awesome to hear because you know, like I'm a big proponent of that because,
Mhm.
you know, I do think that there's so much more so much valuable interaction, you know, at
Yes.
Right.
in-person shows. And you really do find like your real fans, you know. Have you
Exactly.
Yeah.
have you found that like have you seen like maybe some like repeat customers come by and be like, "Oh, I loved issue 1, issue 2, let me pick it up. Let me support you however."
Yeah, it's crazy sometimes, because kind of like you're saying, you know, some people have really good luck in the digital space and getting fans that way. I've always been awful at it. But
Yeah.
it's just so crazy, like me being there in person and then people being like, "Oh, I remember seeing you from this thing and I really wanted to buy your second issue. So let me buy your second issue now." And I was like, "Oh, great."
Yeah.
Crazy. Like I love that. Like there was some people at San Japan, and you know, when you do the local markets, you know, a lot of people, to try and get away from you, they will say like, "Oh, I'll come back later," and they don't come back later. At
Mhm.
San Japan, people were like, "I will come back later," and like that venue space was ginormous, right? Like it was huge, like so many vendors. How do you find me there? um they came back and they bought like another comic or like a frog, and I was just like, that's so cool. It's like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, yeah,
Nice.
and, like, sometimes, like, they actually do mean it because, like, you might be
Yes.
you know, you
So
actually
cool.
might be, like, closer to the entrance or something, so they haven't had a chance to, you know, walk around an entire, artist
Mhm.
alley or something, so, um, yeah, I mean, that's those are the best people
They
at the
are.
show.
It just like it warms your heart for the entire day. Like you're like, nothing bad can go wrong now. It's just like this person came back for my work. I'm like, yes.
I actually had a question about what was like your stock in terms of your first convention versus your latest convention? Like what did you
Oh,
have available on your table?
okay. So yeah, that's a good question. Cause I thought you were saying like literal stock, and I'm like, yeah, I'm really bad
Oh no.
about that actually. But
Give us
yeah.
your count, your distinct, unique count of your
How many
books and
issues did you bring? You didn't bring enough Kermits to San Japan. How dare you? But yeah. So yeah, like with my first table, I think I only had 3 issues out at the time, like 3 comic book issues, and then I had 2 large prints that I couldn't move for the longest time, and I was just like, "Are these prints cursed?" Um, and then I had like the frog charms. I always had the frog charms because people told me it would do well. I just had it as like an experiment, but then people were like, "Yeah, you should sell this," and I was like, "Oh, okay." So I always had the frog charms. I had like maybe 6 stickers available,
Nice.
and 6 postcard prints, and that was all I had. And you know, like I said, a lot of times it was just like it was really hard to find the audience because, you know, people are looking for like, you know, it's a farmer's market, so people are looking for a deal a lot of times.
Right.
And I think the most unique thing I had were the frogs. And so for the longest time, the only thing like I would sell every time without fail were those frog charms. And then every now and then I'd sell a comic and I'd be super excited because, you know, that's what I want to do the most out of everything. Like, I never would want to give up doing my comics. I'm always going to have my comics out there, no matter
Right.
how popular the frogs get. And so, yeah. And so I think I started adding on like greeting cards because like people were really into buying greeting cards at these like smaller markets because they're looking for gifts for people. So I'm like, oh, okay, I could do that. Then
Right.
like I would start like theming my frogs with hats. And so that's what got into the whole hat thing because I started off with I think a Santa hat frog. And then I was like, I had one person, I can't remember where it was. I think it was Anime Frontier. Like, you know what would be so cool if you put a wizard hat? Like that would be the coolest thing if your frog had a wizard hat. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And those have really like taken off. So
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's an evolving thing. I think I was kind of the same. You know, I originally started with like just, you know, a handful of, you know, a comic or two, and then you really kind of start to realize the like for you it's like, you know, your frog uh designs and stuff. For me it was like, okay, so I started doing like small prints of like, you know, known characters, and I kind of realized like you kind of need something to supplement those comics because
right,
not
or at
not
least
not
draw
everyone.
people in.
Yeah.
You know, just draw them in, and then maybe they'll come and read a comic.
Yeah, exactly. And like at some point you're like, okay, so should I do like buy a comic, you get a free frog charm? But then it's like, okay, are they buying the book or are they buying the frog charm? Like which
Right.
what is it?
You don't want to cheapen it either. You don't want to sell yourself short. Like
Exactly.
your work has value, and whatever you value it should be that value. If anything, like sometimes what I'll do is if they show interest in my comic, I'll throw in a sticker of like the comic logo because I get stickers made with the comic logo on it, and like that's my throw in. You know, as we
Yeah.
say in Cajun French, my lagniappe. So.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Ken, what else what else you got for Mina?
I only had like a quick question, but I was like thinking about it during the talk. It was about, I'm trying to remember.
We could get Mina to speak some more Cajun French for us.
Yeah, a little bit, a
Hold
little
on.
bit. Only enough to get me in trouble.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask like so to get into all these shows, are you sharing tables with other creators? Like are you coordinating with other creators online or in person and saying like, "Hey, I'll share this table with you at this show"?
Yeah, sometimes I know the people I work best with though.
Mhm.
And so like I do want to help other artists out and like share tables, but a lot of these like conventions that you have to apply like months in advance, they're very strict about like table sharing, so you really have to know
Oh,
in advance who you're going to share that table with. And like I said, for me, like the person I feel most comfortable with right now is the friend who shared a table with me in the beginning. But I have shared a table with a couple other people sometimes. But
Yeah.
I think make sure like you don't just share a table with anyone, because like
right.
make sure it's someone like you trust with your work almost. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
you could leave the table and they'll be cool with like looking after your stuff, or you know, like they won't
Yeah.
be the type that's like, hey, you're encroaching on my space, you know. It's just like
Right.
you don't want that kind of energy when you're trying to sell your work.
Yeah,
um
totally.
just you know, someone who's supportive and will support you back, and you're supportive of their work, you genuinely like their work too, I think that helps a lot as well, you know.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So, um, a lot of creators and stuff kind of struggle with this kind of aspect of it, you know, whenever they're starting to do shows. You know, us artists are typically more reserved, less outgoing. You know, we're kind of like stuck on our tables drawing all the time, like.
Hmm.
So, um did you kind of have like those reservations whenever you first started doing shows, kind of like, you know, oh man, like I'm scared to kind of like pitch my book, or I'm scared to kind of like, have a meaningful conversation with this person, because, you know, you want to sell yourself, but you also have kind of like this like anxiety behind you.
Hmm.
Was that kind of because, you know, I know whenever I first started doing shows, like, I wasn't as well versed in like the etiquette, or, you know, like the ability to like pitch my books and stuff. Did you kind of have to find your way in that regard?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think doing those like more farmers markets kind of like pushed me into doing it, because if you don't like you know, the etiquette at conventions is like you're not really supposed to hawk as much, whereas like these outdoor markets you kind of have to hawk a
Yeah.
little bit, like
Yeah,
get
yeah.
someone like, hey, you want to read this,
Mhm.
it's free to read, like that kind of thing. And so that kind of like pushed me into like having to explain to complete strangers about my comic. And like I said, having that elevator pitch in my head from like when I did take the screenwriting class, I'm like, okay, how can I say this to people in less than like 3 sentences? Go and
Yeah.
see if they'll read it. And then by the time I was actually accepted into the conventions, I think I was still a little anxious about the about some parts about pitching my comic, but I think the thing I was more anxious about that I'm starting to, I think I've gotten better at, is like going to other artists' tables when I have a chance and like actually talking to other artists and supporting them. I know sometimes I still have a little bit of reservations with that because I want to stay at my table, but
Right.
like you have to like trust the person that's with you, or like trust. Sometimes they'll have people walking around and they'll like, hey, I'll watch, you know, I'll watch your table, but you really have to it's easier said than done, but like try to build a community of artists by like, hey, checking out other people's work. Oh, I really like this about your work. Do you want to do an art trade sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
uh, Being willing to get up from your table for a little bit and just walk around and see other artwork.
Right.
Yeah, I do find that, like, you know, comic trades are like
Yeah,
absolutely awesome.
it
You know,
can
that's
be
kind of,
daunting, but it's so cool when you
yeah, yeah, it can be daunting, like, you know, especially when you're starting out. But so like I went to Heroes Con back in June or July, whenever that
oh,
was,
okay.
and in North Carolina, and they had so many like indie comics people, and everyone was just like trading back and forth, like going to
That's
see each
awesome.
other's work. So like it's, you know, once you kind of like get into an atmosphere like that, you're kind of like, okay, this is a normal thing. Like this is like, you know, here's your business card, here's my business card, but it's not a business card, you know, it's like your actual work. So
Yeah.
which is pretty
Yeah.
sweet. Come back home with a nice haul too.
Yeah,
So
this book stacked this big.
yeah, best. Um Mina, what other kind of shows do you have left for the year? So this episode is
Yeah.
going to drop
In
in
a
two
couple
weeks
weeks.
from today.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So what other kind of shows do you have going on towards, you know, the back quarter of the year?
Yeah, so I have two lined up in October. So one is called H Town Con, and I think
Yeah.
this is their first year. So 3 days at the NRG Center. So we'll see how it goes. I'm really excited. Just for that venue. And then I'm going to a smaller one, but they've been doing it for 3 years in Beaumont, called Beaumont Comic Con. And
Cool.
so curious to see what the culture is like there. I did live a large portion of my life in Beaumont. So I am curious to see how the culture has changed or maybe not changed around comics. So
Gotcha.
yeah. And then in November, I have two lined up. as well. They're 1-day events, so the same guys that do the BotCon, they're doing like a 1-day event in Alvin, and then there's like a library event as well in Pasadena, and then in December I'm doing Comic Indie. So I met him at the Eastern Rim,
Yeah.
and
Nice.
so I'm really excited for that one because they invited me to do a panel, and I was like, oh my gosh, a panel.
Oh.
So yeah, that, and I'll be doing Anime Frontier again with my friend. So
Yeah,
Awesome.
I was fixing to tell you about Comic Indie Con because I'm actually one of the organizers that's
oh, awesome.
helping out with it. So I was gonna be like, apply to that one, but you already got it. So
I'm like, I was nose to the ground. I was like, oh, comics
Yeah.
specifically, indie
yeah,
comics specifically.
it's a really cool show. It's been on like hiatus for like the last couple years because of COVID stuff, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's gonna be sweet.
Nice.
I'm
But
excited.
awesome. Well, I think that kind of wraps up the interview. This was fantastic, Mina. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you for
well,
inviting me. Like,
Yeah,
so
this
humbled.
is awesome. Fantastic. Mina, go ahead and let the good people out there know where they can follow you. Where can they check out your comics? Where can they read Witchblade? All that good stuff.
I'll have it
Yeah.
on the screen here.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
so you can find most of my links on my portfolio website, aptly named menabaldwinart.com. And that will have all my links, but you can also mainly find me on like Instagram at foodangel2. I'm foodangel2 on most things. So you can find me there. And then my comic is on Webtoons under Artie Witchblade, and I go under the pseudonym Mena Bun. So
Fantastic. All you viewers out there, go check out this. Go check out this stuff.
Yes.
Give Mina a follow.
It's about
her out.
magic, but
About magic. I mean,
not really.
That's awesome. Ken, how about you, man? Where can everybody find you?
Everyone already knows where to find me.
Tell
But
them again.
but y'all can find me on Twitter or X at thecomicsgrind. And you can also find me on Instagram at comicsgrind. And where else? Oh yeah, Air Rider High School Hero. You can find that on Global Comics. All the links will be in the description down below, including for Mina and Nico as well.
Fantastic. And you guys can find me on Instagram at Nico_writes. The same thing on Twitter or X, whatever it's called. You can also follow my Substack at nicorodriguez.substack.com. That about does it for us. Thank you guys for watching so much, and we will see you next time.